Welcome to Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 all the way to number 1. And this week on the show, Top 5 movies of 1980. Not the 1980s, not the decade. We've already done that. No, we're looking specifically at the year 1980. And I think we've got quite a list of things to get through. So, Rodrigo, why don't you start us off with your number 5?
Oof. So this list was tough for me. I looked at all the movies that came out in 1980, and I realized I had not seen any of them.
Really?
Much.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a corollary to your whatever came out when you were 16. That's like what you're into.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that if something came out within like 2 or 3 years of when you were born, it's like you probably didn't see it.
Yeah, I get that.
So I was born in 1983, so I didn't start watching movies until 1985, probably. Anyway, my number 5 is Raging Bull, a movie I saw in film school.
Yep.
So, and this is where I'm at with this list is like, if I have seen a movie from 1980, it's on this list.
Okay.
So the number 5 movie that I've seen from 1980, Raging Bull. It's a good movie. It's a cinematographical triumph. Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. It's a movie about a boxer, and it's, intense and sad. And my script writing professor loved it. And so we saw lots of little chunks of it, and then I watched the whole thing, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, Raging Bull is my number 4.
Okay.
It is a really interesting story about someone who I always look at as someone who doesn't know how to handle their success or lets their success go to their head, and that ends up being their downfall. And we see that time and time again where he thinks he's the greatest boxer, and he's really not. And when he has that fight with the quote-unquote Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't know if it's, called Sugar Ray Leonard. I know he's called Ray in the film. But when he has that fight with Sugar Ray Leonard and he is trounced significantly, a great fight scene, by the way, for anybody that wants to examine editing and cinematography, he doesn't know how to come back from that. And his life just kind of spirals out of control to where eventually he winds up going to jail at the end.
Yeah.
And so Raging Bull, my number 4, I think it's a great Martin Scorsese film. I think everybody should, if they haven't seen this film, they should watch it. Keep in mind, it is a black and white movie, and some people look at black and white and they're instantly turned off by that. But it is well shot, well edited, well acted. It is definitely deserving to be on someone's top 5 list. So I'm glad it's there at your number 5.
Yeah.
Matthew, what do you have for your number 5?
In the spirit of top 5 corrections, it's actually Sugar Ray Robinson, who was a boxer in the 40s. Sugar Ray Leonard is from the 80s, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't remember. I don't know if I know who he's supposed to be. Yeah. Just like the character that Robert De Niro plays is supposed to be based on a real character. So I don't know if they use real names or they've just called him Ray in the movie or not. So what do you have for your number 5?
They did call him Ray, and Jake LaMotta is in fact the name of the character, the real entity.
The real person.
Yep. My 1980 list, I had a similar issue to Rodrigo in that there were a lot of movies that I feel like, oh yeah, this is a movie that I've heard about, or this is a movie that I feel like I should have seen, but I hadn't. And then I started looking at the ones that I had seen, and I would like to now take you, starting with my number 5, on a 5-decade tour of Matthew's life, because I realized that every one of these movies I saw at a different decade, a different age of my life. So the only movie of 1980 that I saw in 1980 is actually one of my favorite terrible Disney movies. And I want to say up front, yes, Herbie Goes Bananas is a little bit racist. However, by the standards of 1980, it could have been 1980.
They re-released Song of the South in 1980, so a little racist. Exactly. It kind of elevates it when you know that they re-released Song of the South in that same year here in the United States. So.
That is a valid point. If you thought I was going to say Song of the South, first of all, shame on you. I've never seen it, and second of all, no. But Herbie, the Love Bug, one of my favorite characters in fiction. really a classic trickster, sort of a Robin Goodfellow archetype, in this movie is kind of placed up against the might of Harvey Korman and John Vernon, who played Dean Vernon in Animal House. And his closest friend is a young man from Puerto Vallarta named Paco. Now, the racism of the movie is a little bit muted by the fact that Paco is the smartest person in the movie. He's a 9-year-old boy, and he literally finds Herbie after the car is thrown overboard because the Love Boat was a big deal in 1980. So they started literally riding the Love Boat to Puerto Vallarta to participate in a Mexican road race. And so throughout the film, terrible, silly, goofy things happen, but entertaining things happen. And we do actually get to see some really bizarre hijinks that take place in what I'm almost certain is not an actual Incan ziggurat kind of situation. But it has some bits in it that are almost historical. Now, am I finding reasons to justify this movie? Yes, because I was 9 when it came out. I love this thing. It was just one of those movies that hit me right in that sweet spot of I am 9 years old, my IQ is room temperature, and here's a movie with Cloris Leachman in it. But most importantly, it is part 4 of the Herbie quadrilogy, if you will, sort of the hero's journey where Herbie has to go, on his long journey. And of course, he gives up and he loses and he's very rusty. And at the end of the film, of course, he's restored to his former grandeur. But if you want to see a Volkswagen and a cute little boy named Paco having sort of a Sancho Panza relationship and going through the universe and fighting metaphorical windmills, this is the movie for you. My number 5 1980 movie.
My number 5 movie from 1980 is one also that I love, but for whatever reason, people like to shame this movie. And it's not a horrible movie. Robert Altman took a beloved property and said, I'm going to make a musical out of this. And I'm going to get 2 of the top actors of the day. One of them, Shelley Duvall, hot off of The Shining. And, of course, Robin Williams, that Mork from Ork guy. And he put them together in a movie called Popeye. And this movie is great. I don't care what anybody says. Even today, I can watch this and go, there's a lot of charm in this. There's a lot of ambition in this. The fact that they built the entire city, the entire town on that island, and for I think like a decade or so, it was still there as a tourist attraction, is great. If you've not seen it, if you are trying to figure out who Robert Altman is and some of his movies, one of the ones that you have to watch, for better or for worse, is Popeye, based on the Popeye the Sailor comic strip. It's got all the classic Thimble Theater characters in there, so that is going to be confusing to some people who only grew up on the animated shorts that only had Bluto and Olive Oyl and Popeye. But we've got all of the Oyl families. We've got Wimpy. We've got Brutus. We've got, all the extra characters that run around. And I think that they did a great job of bringing this to life. Now, a lot of people complain that, the prosthetics on Robin Williams looks awful. But I would say that they made him look like Popeye. So I don't know if that is such a bad thing. But my number 5 is Popeye by Robert Altman, Robin Williams, and Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, their Bluto is dead, solid, perfect.
Yeah, Paul
I remember
Smith.
watching
Paul
that.
Smith is the one who did that.
Oh yeah, he used to draw X-Men.
I guess maybe.
It's probably a different Paul Smith,
probably
but still
a different one. Yeah. You may know him from Midnight Express. You may know him in Popeye. You may know him from Dune.
He was the prison guard.
You may know him from TV shows like Wonder Woman and Barney Miller and Hawaii Five-0. Yeah, that's that guy. So there you go. Those are our number 5s off the list. Let's now move, Rodrigo, into our number 4s.
All right. My number 4 has actually already been mentioned. And I'm realizing that again because I have such a surface level look at 1980 in film. Most of my list is probably going to be in someone else's list.
I figure that's going to be the same with
just,
mine too. So
let's just pull the Band-Aid. My number 4 is The Shining.
Oh, there you go.
Based on a Stephen King book, which he didn't like. He didn't like that how this movie turned out, but it's like Stanley Kubrick creates the most oppressive and frightening movie out of 4 people and a guy in a dog costume. It's if you haven't seen The Shining and people keep saying like, oh, it's so great and blah 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 blah, and you're like, it can't be that great. Take a deep breath, go in without expectations, and you'll find that there is something to like in The Shining. Another movie with great cinematography, great acting, great editing. A legendary movie in lots of ways. There are lots of legends about it. There's, people that not only are there lots of legends about it, but every legend about it is said differently by different people. There's the thing that Stanley Kubrick, got this performance out of Shelley Duvall by basically gaslighting her the whole time, and some people are like, and that's because he was a great director, and some people are like, and that's because he was a monster. And then there's also some people that are like, actually, that didn't exactly happen like that. It is, in fact, a movie that has a huge legend around it. And it's almost as interesting to read about what people think about The Shining as it is to watch The Shining, especially once you start getting into the conspiracy theories of what The Shining is. But we're not going to get into that today. My number 4, a spooky movie about a hotel that hates you, The Shining.
Yeah, that's The Shining is my number 2. Also because of the great performance, but just this idea that, yes, there's ghosts that are driving Jack Nicholson's character a bit crazy, just the spirit of the hotel, but also just the slow descent to madness when you think you can get work done and you can't, right? He's there to he's there to be a caretaker, but also this is a great opportunity for him to write his book that he needs to write because his family depends on this, and he can't, and he starts just devolving into madness throughout the whole film, and goes crazy. I love that idea. I love the idea of a little boy who has this power to what is his name, Timmy or Tommy or whatever, that's in the back of his throat that talks to him. Tony, that's it. And the fact that he can call, Scatman Crothers to come and save him. Spoiler alert, Catman Crothers does not survive. But the other thing is, when you do look at the production of this, it is pretty crazy and amazing. Like, you think that they're actually shooting at the hotel, but they're not. A lot of that is set reconstruction, and the stuff that they are shooting at the hotel, they had to set up this massive bank of lights on the outside that were so hot that people were getting burned if they got too close to these massive banks of lights to create these giant soft shadows, or soft light coming in through the hotel windows to light up the main lounge area where Jack is typing all day. So yeah, the Shining, it took me a while to get into that book or into that movie because of the subject matter, and it is kind of intense, especially at the end when a man is trying to kill his son. That can be pretty intense for a young person. But The Shining definitely came out on top and earned a spot in my number 2.
The Shining is also my number 2.
All right.
And I think really the thing about the movie that kind of really knocked it out of the park for me is I watched it in 2016, 2017 with my kid. And they've been in the last 5 or 10 years now. They just turned 21. I'm going to fall off and just turn to dust. But anyway, they have been in a real horror movie vibe. And we were watching The Shining, which I'd seen 6-8 times. I'm pretty sure we watched it for Zach on film. But watching it with the kid and seeing the things that they caught on to really changed my perspective of it, because there are a couple of things that I had never noticed that they pointed out. One is the bartender. When the bartender shows up, and whenever he's talking to the bartender, it's always like, oh yeah, is he hallucinating? Is it really a ghost? But they always have a mirror. So you can always be like, is he just talking to himself in the mirror? And of course, something that I had heard but never really thought about is that as we were watching, they were getting more and more frustrated and concerned. And I'm like, what's wrong? And I realized that they've been trying to figure out what's going on in the hotel. And I'm looking, and there's a little sketch. And my kid is like, this hotel doesn't make sense. The hotel is like, she's like, it's a genius loci. And I'm like, oh, okay. And because the things don't make sense, and there's a point where Danny is riding his little cycle and he turns and he turns and then he turns again. And the way the hotel is set up, if he turned the direction that he went, he literally just left the building and clipped out through the wall like a PlayStation 2 movie. But it makes it so much more horrifying and so much stranger. And just having that younger person's perspective on this film that I'd seen, to the point where I think a lot of us have seen just the parody of Jack sticking his face in the door and screaming, "Here's Johnny." You see that a dozen times. You see it in, cartoons. I saw it on a Nickelodeon show a couple of years ago aimed at 12 and 13-year-olds. That's the level of kind of perception that you have, that level of just subsumation into the public consciousness. But really, when you look at this movie, it is scary as a film. It's scary as a story. It's unnerving when you know the backstory. It's more unnerving when you know the story of all of the people involved. And it's layers within layers within. There's nothing about this movie that isn't just creepy as all heck. And I think that's what makes it even more compelling for me. It's infinitely watchable. And that's why The Shining is my number 2.
Yeah, just stay out of room 237. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. What do you have for number 4?
My number 4 is a film that I dearly, dearly love. But I did not discover that I loved it until I was in college. It was 1990. Somebody can play 90s music. I don't know. Not Flock of Seagulls, Rodrigo. That's too late. But in 1990, Tom Boaz, who married the girl that I was in love with, I'm not bitter about that, 35 years later, showed me his VHS copy of The Blues Brothers. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a good movie. It is not in any way a good, well-constructed, or logical movie. But as a narrative, it is probably the most charismatic mess in the entire decade. And we're talking about, a decade that gave us movies that are just like, whoa, and you have nothing but attitude to go on. But the movie The Blues Brothers is essentially just John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd doing a movie-length Saturday Night Live skit about how they're these great blues singers and they have to earn money to save the orphanage where they grew up. So, it's the plot of any given Andy Hardy movie. But throughout the film, they keep having these moments where we just stop. And John Lee Hooker plays piano, and we listen to a whole blues number by John Lee Hooker. Or they go to buy a new instrument, and the man running the music exchange is Ray Charles. So we stop, and then Ray Charles does a whole song. It really is a movie that's just about what these two big nerds loved. At the time, Danny was completely into blues, and John was into, cocaine and heroin and also blues. And they were just completely gone, just loving this whole film. But if you watch it, it's almost hypnotic. And as things go along, you get in a certain rhythm and you're just like, oh man, disco pants and haircuts. Yeah, this mall's got everything. And by the time you have Illinois Nazis falling to their death and declaring their love for one another, you're kind of in, even though the movie does not make sense, even though you get to the end and you're like, wait, is that it? That is it. But it really is just sort of a cute little story. It's like, you're at a party and your friend is telling this cool story about something that happened, and they're on a mission from God, and that's how it all goes. And then at the end, the car explodes and everybody goes back to jail. So would I recommend that you watch it? Yes. Would I say it's a good movie? No. But The Blues Brothers is my number 4 film of 1980, and one that I didn't learn to love until the 1990s.
I'm just
My
surprised you
number
didn't
three.
watch it until 1990.
Well, and I come from a very small town, and a lot of times what you would see in the theater was just
Yeah,
what
but this
was in
was
the
like
theater.
on
It's the only
television.
option you had.
I'd already seen this on television multiple times before I went to college. So that's why I'm just surprised. So, Rodrigo, you said this was your number 3?
This was my number 3.
Hmm.
Because I've seen this movie. I really enjoy it. It's got a really fantastic soundtrack, and
Right.
also a really amazing car pileup. That I think about often, and how it's like, even if they got all of those cars on the cheap, like how much must that have costed? And was that the most expensive thing about this movie? Because the rest of the movie doesn't seem like it would have been that expensive.
John's cocaine budget was $83 million.
Well, okay, right, yeah, well, there is that. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot when I watched it. I'm just gonna throw it in here. I'm one of those weirdos that also enjoy the Blues Brothers 2000.
You're the one.
Yeah, I felt like they were really literally trying to get the band back together, and I really appreciated the effort. And Erykah Badu's in it. Not in the 1980s one, in Blues Brothers 2000. Good times.
Yeah. My number 4 was Raging Bull. I think we are now ready to move into our number 3s. Rodrigo, did we already do your number 3? That was Blues Brothers, right?
That was Blues Brothers.
All right,
yeah.
Matthew, what do you have for your number 3?
My number 3 is another film that I didn't see until well after it should have been on. And this is important because I had seen chunks and bits and pieces of this film. And we actually had in high school a running gag about the film Flash Gordon. Because Flash Gordon ends with the end, or is it? ? And it is just not a good movie. But also, when I finally did see it, again, it would have been in the early 2000s when I was sat down to watch all of it. I will admit, the reason that I sat down to watch all of it is because Seth MacFarlane is a huge fan. And so when you sit down and you watch the 1980 space opera Flash Gordon, there are 3 things that you need to know about this film. 1, the soundtrack is incredible. It is just absolutely note perfect. 80% of the movie is actually in the theme song, which is also good. 2, it is a gorgeously put together movie trying to cash in on a little Star Wars money, I feel. And 3, and this cannot be understated, there are 2 good actors in this movie. One of them plays the King of the Hawkman and screams the whole time, and the other one plays the evil Ming the Merciless. Everyone else in this film is just kind of a bag of nickels. But it's really fun to watch people kind of crash into each other. And if you sit back and watch Flash Gordon honestly, in its natural setting, which would be Friday night with a very large sandwich and a bunch of friends, maybe some brewskis, it's hard to say, you will find that this film is incredibly engaging. This film is another example of a film that, not necessarily good, but really charismatic. And you get your first glimpses of Timothy Dalton, I feel, at least for American audiences, where you can go, oh man, for the next 20 years, people are going to be whining that he never got to play Iron Man. So I feel like that's worth the price of admission right there. And that's why Flash Gordon is my number 3.
Yeah, this is one that is on my also ran. Also, Blues Brothers on my also ran. This is one that I did get to see once it hit HBO, because I'd go over to a friend's house, and it was one of those in the early days of HBO that was always on. You couldn't get away from Flash Gordon on HBO when it hit. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Brian Blessed is great. Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless, great. People can go and look at the controversy with what's the main actor's name? Jones, I think is his last name. Sam Jones. Go look at the controversy surrounding his supposed acting performance in the film, and it's quite funny. But yeah, I can understand why people would have that on their list. My number 3 is one that, again, saw all the time once it hit regular broadcast television growing up. Didn't get to see this in the movie because it's an adult movie. But it's what happens during the summertime at the golf course. And we follow a bunch of caddies around on their adventures in the movie Caddyshack. Now, the thing about Caddyshack that a lot of people want to look at is focus on Chevy Chase. They want to focus on Ted Knight and Rodney Dangerfield. But what they forget is this movie is super subversive because it's really a movie about abortion. And this is what people don't remember, is that the reason why the kid had to enter the tournament, not only because he wanted to go to college, but because he got his girlfriend pregnant and they were debating whether to get the abortion or not, or whether to marry her or not. And it's a whole big subplot running underneath this raunchy comedy where Bill Murray has to go eat a Baby Ruth out of the swimming pool. It's still probably not something that holds up well today. It is sophomoric humor, but what do you expect? It's Caddyshack, and it's my number 3.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, we've got our number 3s out of the way. I think we are ready for number 2. Matthew, you had The Shining.
I had The Shining. Steven, you had The Shining?
I had The Shining, and Rodrigo had The Shining, right?
I had The Shining as like my number 4.
So what do you have as your number 2 then?
My number 2 is Airplane.
Ooh.
Now that we're getting into number 2 and number 1, these are movies that I've actually enjoyed.
Okay.
And not just have seen for school or whatever. I enjoy The Shining. It's fun. Airplane kind of blew my mind when I first saw it, because I'm pretty sure I saw it before I saw any like Naked Gun movies or anything like that. So there's like extremely absurd movie. Just really, I was like, I didn't know that you could just do this, right? It's like, striker punches a lady, and it's like, what? Wait, is that from that? Is that from Hot Shots? I don't remember. Airplane.
Barbara Billingsley. Barbara Billingsley. Yes. Doing jive talk, the jive translator, and that was all improvised. That was all improvised right before the scene went on.
There's a scene at the airport where like there's these like 2 guys, and they're like, oh yeah, thanks, and then they like kiss. And it's kind of an amazing moment, because I'm sure at the time people were like, what? And then everybody was like, oh yeah, whatever. And now people are gonna like, what? So it just goes to show that we just can never get far enough that it's not a thing. Yeah. But Airplane has a fascinating history in Mexico. I may have talked to you guys about this before, but Airplane was translated, the title was translated into Spanish as ¿Y dónde está el piloto? Which means, and where's the pilot? Which in Airplane makes sense. Because the whole point is that the pilot and co-pilot get sick, right? And then he has to fly the plane. But it was such a hit in Mexico that from then on, most comedies, especially absurd comedies, started using that naming convention. So Naked Gun and all of its sequels is called ¿Y dónde está el policía? Where's the policeman? The Repossessed is called And Where's the Exorcist? And I thought that that all went, that all basically, this is 1980, so through the 80s and 90s, maybe this happened. But recently, I realized that I forget what it was. The latest Wayans Brothers movie was translated that way, as like, and where is the ghost, or something like that. Like scary movie is like, and where is the ghost? So it's kind of amazing that this movie has like such a weird legacy in another country. but it makes sense because as far as like absurd humor goes, it's pretty good and it holds up joke wise, but probably not theme wise. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot. This movie throws a lot at you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
It's also a remake of a movie called 0 Hour from 1957. The Zucker brothers and Abrahams saw this and they were like, what if we just remade this but made it funny? And like there's literal scenes, complete exchanges, lines from the original movie that are used in this. And when they went to go get permission, they had to say, no, we're remaking this. We're not going to make fun of it. And then they totally made fun of it.
And then they did.
Yeah. So go look at it. It's really weird when you go see the side-by-side comparison of 0 Hour and Airplane. But it also makes it that much more fascinating and interesting to want to watch the entire Airplane movie.
Yeah. So this movie came out in 1980, obviously. And because I've watched it, and as you can tell, I haven't watched a lot of movies from the 80s. And I probably have watched more movies from like the 70s than the 80s, I guess, now that I'm looking at this and like I'm unable to come up with movies from the 80s that I've seen. But I always assume that anything I don't get on Airplane is a 70s reference, is like something that I just like have not found. If something ever happens and like a character just walks out and he's like, that's the Boston cream pie, then I'm like, okay, that's something that was like really happening in like 1985 or 1975 or something.
Yeah. Airplane also on my also ran. I have a very long also ran list. In fact, I was thinking, man, we could make 2 episodes of this because there were a lot of. I thought that there were no really good movies made in 1980, and there's a crap ton of movies made in 1980. But what's going to be our number 1? Let's find out what is on our number 1 movie from 1980 on our list. Rodrigo, what do you have for your number 1 movie?
My number 1 movie from 1980 is let's see what it's officially called. Star Wars: Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back.
Also my number 1.
Yes. I love Star Wars. I have spent a lot of time criticizing Star Wars, but it comes from a place of love. I probably didn't see this movie until well into the 90s. Probably
during the anniversary re-release.
Maybe. So my dad likes Star Wars and he would play it every once in a while, but I know that I saw it when I was little and I was like, I'm not into this. Like, just, I'm like, I know that there's aliens in this, but they don't get enough screen time. It's mostly this blonde kid, so I'm like, whatever. Eventually I saw it, really enjoyed it. I think all of the praise for Empire Strikes Back is really well earned. I think it is a really great movie. But I definitely didn't see it in 1980 because I wasn't born yet. And I didn't appreciate it probably until I watched it again after the prequels had come out and had been like, what are people so angry about? And I saw it and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, clearly a very different direction from where the sequels were going. But yeah, having that, it's a very weird perspective to have existed in that moment in time when like Star Wars kind of wasn't a big deal. Like after Return of the Jedi, things calmed down for Star Wars. Like there were always the toys in the toy aisles, and like rabid Star Wars fans were like, doing their thing and talking to each other and going to cons. But like there was a moment in time where like people didn't talk about Star Wars all the time.
Right.
And then once 1999 hit, that stopped and we entered the time of Star Wars and we are still there. Like everybody's always talking about Star Wars still.
Yeah.
So it was weird to like have lived through a period in time where like it wasn't like it was a formative bit of pop culture, right? You could see Star Wars references and things. But it wasn't like a thing in pop culture like it is now. And like we'll see if Disney just burns it out. Who knows?
Never, I say.
Never.
I got to see this in the theater when it came out. It's one of the good memories that I have of my dad, in which he was like, hey, I don't remember where my mom and my sister were at, but he's just like, "Hey, I know it's a school night, but how about we go and watch Empire Strikes Back?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so we got there, and the theater was sold out. So he's like, "Well, I guess we'll try to get tickets for the second show," which at that time was the 7 o'clock show. There was a 5 o'clock show, 7 o'clock show, and I don't know if they did 10 o'clock shows. I guess they did back then for some cases, but he definitely would not have wanted to stay up for a 10 o'clock show because he had to go back to work the next day. So instead, he took me to McDonald's. We went to, I think probably a Kmart or a Walmart or something, and he bought me a Swamp Thing comic book and
Nice.
a couple of other things that I really, really liked. And then we went and saw Empire Strikes Back together, and it was great. And there must have been a 10 o'clock show because when we came out, I remember coming out of the theater and there was a line down the block for people wanting to get in to see the movie. And it was just a really good experience. It was I remember it was a rainy day. In fact, I wrote about this in an article on Major Spoilers for a Father's Day thing, probably 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, Empire Strikes Back. It's not my favorite of the original trilogy. That's always going to be Star Wars. But I know why a lot of people like Empire Strikes Back. But for me, I like it just because I've got a really good memory of hanging out with my dad and going to see that movie together. And he really liked it a lot, so much so that when Return of the Jedi came out, I think he drug us to the theater like 3 times to see Return of the Jedi, 3 or 4 times, which is a rarity for the Schleicher household back then. It was like, yeah, you got to go see the movie once and then wait for it to come out on TV. So yeah, Empire Strikes Back, my number 1. Matthew, what do you have for your number 1?
Not The Empire Strikes Back. I like The Empire Strikes Back, but I also said to myself, do I like it enough to put it on this list? No. More importantly, there is a movie that I have actually only started to really, really love in my 50s. And this is a movie that you guys, I've talked about my TV watching theory. A lot of times I will have the television on for sort of what I call video wallpaper. So something will be going on, something will entertain that portion of my brain that needs lights and sound and, dancing bears and whatever it needs. And then I can be, writing or working, whatever else I need to be doing. But there's something to where if I need a moment and I need to just go, okay, I'm going to look away from this and something is going to distract me, that's what's on TV. And so recently, and I don't remember, I think it may be this new MGM channel that has popped up in my cable roster, has been playing a movie that I had always heard about. And I've heard like, oh yeah, people talk about this. This is one of those highfalutin thinking movies where you like, oh, you have to sit and you have to go, well, I feel that the metaphor. I'm fine with those. There are times when I really enjoy having that kind of discussion. But also, there are movies that I have never seen because of listening to those sorts of things all my life. So when I sat down to watch, completely by accident, Ordinary People from 1980, the core cast of this film is Donald Sutherland, the guy from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or whatever, where he goes, whoa, and Mary Tyler Moore, of course, who used to be married to Dick Van Dyke, as far as you know, Judd Hirsch from Taxi, and Timothy Hutton, who I know from like 4 or 5. He was in Reds, he was in The Falcon and the Snowman, a bunch of films that also I didn't watch until well after they were out. But this movie is just mesmerizing. It is a very simple story, directed by Robert Redford, of all people, really kind of a stripped down story of a family. They've lost one son. And throughout the story, we find out how that happened. And their younger son has just been released from the hospital after his own attempt to end himself. And the movie kind of just picks up there. You have no real context. You're just thrown into this weird, awkward suburban life. And because of I feel like maybe like the pop culture profiles of these people, you kind of look at a couple, and that couple is Donald Sutherland and Mary Tyler Moore. Your brain wants to say, okay, this is Hawkeye Pierce and, Mary Tyler Moore, the ultimate mom. And the movie makes really, really good drama out of the fact that your brain goes in maybe thinking you know what's going on. And that to me is just amazing. It's really wonderful to see this story and to see the parents arguing about, did they push their son to this? What is making it happen? And you really come to the realization that something in this family has to give. And when it does, at first, you're just like, oh my God, that's so tragic. And then the ending has just this weird kind of upbeat feeling. It's very, very positive. There's an optimism for the first time in the film. And it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. If you've never seen this movie, go watch it. It's 125 minutes, something like that. You can just sit for 2 hours. There's no big car chases. There's no giant villain, although, what's his name? The Baldwin guy is in it.
Adam.
The awful Baldwin.
Adam,
thank you. The awful Baldwin is in it. And he actually plays, a confrontational jerk. So, hey, you got that going for you. But yeah, if you go through, first of all, Donald Sutherland is exquisite in this movie. I had never really looked at him as a big time, subtle actor, but this performance is wonderful. And seeing Mary Tyler Moore get more and more brittle throughout this whole thing, everybody in this movie is great. And any movie where you look at it and you're just like, oh, that's what Robin Williams was going for. Yeah, definitely worth the time. So my number one, paradoxically, the only really good movie on my list that is an actual movie where people say, that's quality film, Ordinary People.
Yeah, it got a lot of Oscars.
Mm-hmm. It did. And it deserved them too.
As I was desperately pouring through all of the movies, I'm like, God, I hope that my list isn't just a complete thing where I'm just drawing things from both of your lists. I'm like, I hope somebody's seen Ordinary People.
Yeah.
and I hope somebody's seen like somebody talks about the stuntman or
with
whatever. I'm like
Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's everything that's on my also rans list, because it's quite extensive. I really thought we would have such a diverse list that we'd be back for a part 2. But Blues Brothers, we already talked about. Return of the King, which is listed as a movie that was released, even though I thought it was a direct-to-TV movie, but it's listed as movies released in 1980. 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton. Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Flash Gordon, Superman 2, The Elephant Man, Somewhere in Time, 2 movies with Christopher Reeve in it in 1980. Somewhere in Time, a time travel movie involving a penny, ladies and gentlemen. My Bodyguard, which is a high school drama, not the one with Kevin Costner and
The Bodyguard.
Yeah. That's another Adam Baldwin joint.
Yeah, it is. Used Cars with Kurt Russell in it. Airplane, Friday the 13th came out in 1980. Mad Max came out in 1980.
I didn't realize that.
John Carpenter.
Yeah, the Final Countdown came out in 1980, and then seems like old times. A Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn movie, which I just love so much. Those are the ones that are on my also rans list, and it's quite long.
The Gods Must Be Crazy came out.
That one came out. Yeah.
That one was almost on my list, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't remember that movie well enough to that's a movie that I'd have to watch again before I made any sort of recommendation on it.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you have on your list? Well, head over to our Discord server and share your thoughts. We will be back next time because everybody loves a list. Top 5 is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by me, Steven Schleicher. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future Top 5 topics, make sure you head over to our Discord server and share your thoughts there.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.